Alright folks, so we're going to talk about input, and that's effectively ways that you can get data into the computer. As you can imagine, if your program did the exact same thing every time it ran, you probably wouldn't have a lot of people interested in using it and downloading it. There's typically some sort of interaction with the users, and that starts with input, which is what we're going to talk about here. So just a brief background, and then I'll get into the Python program and show you how we would do that. So the idea of the information processing cycle with computers is we start with input. We give the computer some sort of data, be that touch screen, be that typing with the keyboard, be that what I'm doing right now and just talking and giving video to the computer. Basically, we want to get stuff from the world into the computer. Now that's going to become processed and then turned into output, which is going to be data that's been turned into something a little more meaningful. So some of the edits I might do, I might, change the volume on something like this. I might pause and restart, might edit the cat out. I don't know if you saw that in the background. Probably not, but those types of edits are going to be things that you would do to produce something that's going to be more organized output. So a couple things, just like we saw in the last video, which I'll have linked below, we save stuff into a variable. So you want to be able to save that into a variable name, into location and memory, so you are able to use that later in the program. And you also want to prompt the user what to enter. As you can imagine, you don't want to just give them, blank boxes to click on if this were a video game, for example. You want to give them a little bit of feedback as to what they're entering. So the command that you see on the screen here is going to be how you would enter. You would ask the user to enter your name. So notice to the left of the equal sign, that's going to be the variable in which you want to store things. And then on the right side, you see the word input, open parentheses, double quotes, and then that prompt, followed by the double parentheses again, and close quote. So this is typically how you would do that. There are other ways, but go with this for now. So the idea is this would now pop up to the user when they ran the program instead of the program that we used last time, which I have here. And you'll see that we predefined our name and we predefined our user number. So when I run this, and remember F5 is our shortcut, we see every time it prints the same values because there's no interaction with the user. There's no input being performed here. So again, if this were a regular program, people would become very bored of this very quickly. So we want to add a little bit of interactivity to it, and what we would do is instead of setting these values as I've done here, we would modify this so it actually performs an input. And as we saw in the PowerPoint, we would type in input. Notice, by the way, input changes to purple. That is because it is considered a keyword by Python idle. And I'm going to say enter your name, colon, and do that. Again, you don't have to do the colon, but it just looks a little cleaner to do it that way. And style points count a little bit. So now if we run this, what we're going to find is, as opposed to just running, now it's going to ask me to enter my name, and since the cat invaded the video, let's enter her name. Oops. I hit the wrong key there and pasted something. But you can see that I enter her name and give that a run. I put in my name, give it a run. Put in my daughter's name, give it a run, and you can see that each time through it is going to give us a slightly different result. It's going to be based on what I, as the person using the program, have entered. It will give us that output. So, you know, if you've ever played a game where it's like, what would you like to name your character? You know, like I used to play World of Warcraft, and you know, what shall we call you? And you enter your name, and the first thing it says is greetings, you know, whoever you are. And that's the idea. It gets the information that's displayed by prompting you as a user and saying, hey, what would you like to be called? And then it uses that as part of its output statements later in the program. So it feels a little more personalized. If you've ever gotten junk email, it's the exact same process. They get your information off of a mailing list, and they say, dear, and then first name. In that case, instead of you entering it from the keyboard, it's from somewhere that maybe they've downloaded online. They've captured that data somewhere. But the idea is, this is why we would do input. We want to give the user the option to put this in. Just to show real quick, theoretically, you don't have to put anything there. You see I have an empty prompt, but the problem is going to be if we do an empty prompt, it doesn't really tell the user what they should be doing. Now you're in kind of a weird spot here as a student who is writing the program and testing it. In most cases, the person running it is not going to know what the program is doing, so if it just sits here, you're going to assume, you know, maybe it's broken or something. So you'll see it will still run exactly the same. You see the exact same output here with and without the prompt, but the challenge is the user doesn't know what's going on, so that's not ideal. The other thing is, you'll notice I put a colon and a space at the end there. Again, it doesn't matter if that's there or not, but the reason I do that is just, if you notice the prompt here on the screen, there's no space after that, and what people will tend to do is they'll tend to put a space in for you. And you see what happens is now you have, your name is not Nora, your name is Space Nora, and there are reasons the computer will treat that a little differently. So there are things we have to do a little differently when we input numbers. We'll talk about that in a future video. If you want to, just to practice, I would say to try to change this for the moment, that line, and I will link this code in the description of the video. So try to change this so it inputs a number, choose your own prompt, stay with the same user or with the user number, the same variable name, but just try to get it so it prompts the user for that, and we'll pick up with that in a later video. So hope this was useful to you, and we'll pick up again in the future here.